Well, friends, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the webinar on Procurement Trends 2016. Now, we will look into what is happening and what next. I mean, all of us in our life wants to know what's happening in the business of procurement and supply chain and what's going to happen in the future. So that's what we're going to talk around. And then we're also going to do around, if I take the trends are the forces that tend to define events for the future. Now these trends will define the type of talents we need, the type of skill sets we need. It also will help us to understand what type of organization structures we need to work around. Do we need a centralized structure? Do we need a decentralized structures? Do we need a hybrid structures? Do we need a process-based structure? Do we need a function-based structures? So those concepts we'll like to make it clear now. We'll also talk about the technologies and strategies for the future. See, the world is changing very fast. It's not like what it used to be 20 years back or 30 years back. There were hardly any changes around, but now the changes are happening so fast due to globalizations and due to technologies. We have to keep pace with the trends around. Now, friends, with this, the way I see around, in short, I could say around, the role of procurement has changed enormously. It used to be a backroom office. If I go 30 years back or 40 years, even 20 years back, it used to be a backroom office. Today, with its importance, it's becoming the main key functions around. It's attaching to the boardroom even. Well, friend, with this, let me start the subject, what I plan to cover up. We will be covering overview of game-changing trends. So what are the trends which are really game changers? Evolution of procurement and supply chain. What changes happen in the field of procurement and supply chain? At least I'm talking in the last 1 year because we do produce these reports every year. Now the game-changing trends in procurement and supply chain, I made a short acronym, PNS, which stands for Procurement and Supply Chain. Why focus on trends? The reason for focusing, as I said in the very beginning introduction, is mainfold is twofold. One is for the organization. If I'm holding the organization resources, where do I put emphasis on? Which can give me best returns on investments. Similarly, when I look at my personal career, I want to grow in my career. I want to know where my field is going to be. What type of skill sets I need, what gaps I have, where do I need to strengthen myself. So this will help you to identify where to be in the years to come. Sharing the best practices in procurement technology and tools. I'll put a lot of emphasis on technology and tools because that's the key thing today. And then how do we drive the value to the enterprise and you? So the way we want to get the values, the focus is on value management for the enterprise as well as your career as well. Well, friend, with this agendas, I welcome you to our journey towards excellence in procurement and supply management. Let's go the overview first. My presentation is divided into 3 parts around. One is the overview. Second, I'm going to talk around is the evolution part. How is the procurement and supply chain evolving over the time? So once we know the evolution part, then I will focus on, after we are done the evolution part, I'll focus on the trends. What trends are coming around? So after the trends, I think we'll talk about the various issues. Now, the very first overview comes up is, you go to any company, whether it's a service industry, whether it's a manufacturing industries. In service industry, it may be less, but in manufacturing industry, I could say across the board, it is between 50 to 70% of the sales revenue is the expense. I mean, if I look at the procurement expense, is around 70% of the sales revenue. So you can imagine the procurement is contributing a lot. Particularly when I look at the big company, it is around easily 70%. Small companies, because there's a lot of vertical integrations. There's a lot of vertical transformations, so it may be 50 or 60% of the sales revenue. The next thing is, all of us, we know very well, there's a big pressure on cost reduction. If I'm heading as a CPO, Chief Procurement Officers, there's a lot of pressure on me to cut the cost. If I'm spending, say, 70% of the sales revenue, there's pressure on me, guys, cut down your cost. And there's also pressure on me to get innovative ideas, to innovative products. So these have to come from the suppliers. So that's the pressure is coming around. Now these pressures are often reflected in procurements, and which must reduce the cost and time for getting the innovative products around. Another thing I would say is, one word is very common. That means the change is constant. Everything is changing. The market is changing, the demand is changing, the supply is changing, the products are changing. So when I say the only constant is change. So, and this statement is very true when I look at the procurement side. So if you are the procurement professionals and you have adopted a new ways of carrying out your work, the word is passing you by. Now let's take another overview part. The role of procurement, when I look at these trends, has changed enormously, both for the large and the small company. So one should not think it is only for the large company, even in the small and medium company, the change is happening. So what we are going to look around in this discussion is what is going to happen in the next 12 months in this profession. So before I walk into the details, let me give you a bigger picture of India. India today and 2025, and so this is basically for the next 10 years. Because the government economy, the government economic ideas, the philosophy affects a lot on industries. Industry mean on the procurement. So let's try to understand the bigger picture. Now this information is based on from planning commissions and the Ministry of Commerce Industry Report. If you look at this figure on the economy side, the plan for the government is to move from 15% of today's share of the manufacturing is only 15%. And next 10 years, they want this to be 25% of the whole GDP. If I look, the GDP now is around $2.2 trillion for the India in dollar terms. And they expect this to be increased by 3.5 times in 10 years. So that means in next 10 years, this will be around $7 trillion. And when I say $7 trillion, I mean this will be the third biggest economy in the world. And manufacturing today is a very small percentage, 15 to 16%. Service industry is quite a big share, 56 to 57%. But the major exports come from manufacturing. And major jobs are also in manufacturing. So there's a big emphasis you are hearing around, Make in India, Startup India. So manufacturing hub is going to increase from 15 to 25. Another thing is also you should know is the contribution to the world trade. So India is contributing only 2.2% of the world share, and expectations are that this will become from 2.2% to 6%. If you look at the population increase as a part of urbanizations, so urbanization today is around 31%. It's going to become 38%. Somebody may be asking why we're talking of urbanization. The more the urbanizations, the different type of products are required. The needs are different. In a rural sector, the type of products required are different. In urbans are different. So that makes a difference. That means the type of product we're going to develop, the type of technology we're going to develop has to meet the expectation of the masses. Then we're also talking of the middle income group. Today is around 54%, and that is expected in next 10 years to become 70%. So if you look around the bigger picture, what the government of India is making around, that's affecting the industries, both manufacturing, at agriculture level, you heard the recent budget, and service industries, And indirectly, this is going to affect the role of procurement people, the supply chain people. Now, to identify the trends, ISM-INDIA took the survey during the last quarter of 2015. I want to thank all of you who have given us their input. So we got the input from 145 chief procurement officers. I would say majority from the big companies, but then also from the middle and very few from the small industries. Now the study is identifying the top trends plus necessary levers for the CPOs in the key major industries. Why I'm saying key major? Because these are the companies who have given us the inputs. Automotive industry, which I think in India is doing very well. Chemicals, high-tech companies, consumer goods, healthcare, transportation, service industry. So this is the sector of the industry who have given us the inputs for us. So our feedback or our analytic is based on the input from this sector of the group around. Now survey questions, when we developed it, they were relating to the procurement framework under the following 4 dimensions. So the 4 dimensions were, so the questions were relating to technologies, strategies, sorry guys, I think we just skipped it one. And so the questions relating to strategies, technologies, processes, and people. People is the driving force. At the end of the day, you may say we have got a wonderful technologies, but if you don't have the right skills, you can't go much farther. Same way, you've got the best technology, but you don't have the right people to manage it. So skill set is also important around. So the type of questions we had in the survey, they were relating to these 4 segments of the procurement framework. Now, let me take also this one. So when we ask the questions from various people around, because in the past procurement was dealt as one of the function of finance, reporting to finance. They were not treated as a business partners. But I was surprised to see, because we have been doing this survey for the last 3 years. So first time we did 3 years back, it was around 35%. Today it is around 54% companies are treating procurement as on par with other functions. So it is not just reporting to finance, they are on par with that. Now procurements have to react very faster, more precisely to efficiently help their companies quickly recognize this industry specific challenges. Now evolution of procurements. So that was the overview I gave it to you. First from the country level, then in the function itself. Now let's walk through the evolution part. We used to call purchasing in the good old days. If I say in 70s beginning, even up to 80s, in India even up to 90s, some people still call purchasing. To me, the purchasing word is a very reactive function. Just making a POs, getting a follow-up is very purely reactive function, I'll call purchasing. Then comes the word procurement. So the procurement means the function becomes from reactive to strategic function. So strategic means you're really looking around not only the reactive function, operational part, you're looking at a tactical. Okay, how much was the volume last year's around? Can I make a long-term agreement with someone? So that becomes more strategic. But this is again a very silo function. Whether we call purchasing, whether we call procurement. So we evolve from purchasing to procurement, but still the function is a very silo type. But if you look at the customer, when the customer places order with you, they are looking the complete chain. You can't say, guys, oh, I've done this, but account has not made payments, so that why supplier could not deliver it. It doesn't make a difference. So for the customer is concerned, they are looking at this as a process, not as a function. While most of the organizations today, we are in the silos. I'm in accounts, I'm in procurement, I'm in logistics. So each one says, I have done my great job, but the other one has not delivered it. So in short, if you want to be really effective, this has to be treated like a process. The structuring of the organization should be more on a process based than silo based. That's how the term came of supply chain. So when we talk of supply chain, we are connecting all the functions, whether they are procurement functions, operation functions, storage functions, logistic functions, all into one integrated chain. So accordingly, you need a different approach, different structures to manage it. So it removes the functional silos. It directly links with the customer. Now coming to the evolution part, I will certainly agree the procurement has moved from its very early roots, but still we are getting a lot of challenges. The major challenge is executive recognitions. Are we recognized by the management? Are we just treated as a backroom office? Is the management really caring about the talent part? Are we able to attract the right people? Are we helping them to improve their talents? And organization challenge. If you look at the old historical, it was all about centralizations, putting some volume together, and cost reduction. That was the beginning, I would say. So we moved from reactive functions to volume leverage to centralization to get the best prices. But now we are moving into value era, category era. So that's what I will explain around how we are moving around. Now, if you look at the role, so from the cost saving enablers, we are becoming supply chain innovators. So we are not just looking at the cost saving, we are also looking at innovating the whole supply chain. So our role is calling for as a financial analyst. So as a procurement person, you're also using the concept of TCOs, total cost of ownership. What is the target cost? What should be the should cost when you're doing the negotiation? Procurement is also helping in improving the specs also. In the good old days, the design will give you some specs and you will pass on someone to make it as per your specs. Now what you do is, supplier gives you feedback, guys. If you want a better quality, if you want a better product, make these changes in the dimensions. Make a change in the look around. So that feedback you get it clear from your design. So you're helping them to improve the specs even. Then also comes up intelligence agent now. So procurement people are also trying to identify what are the supply markets around, what changes are happening around, what new type of suppliers have come up around, what new products have come up around, what new technology has come up around. So in short, they are trying to get the complete insight of the supply markets and helping to improve the products. Another dimension is coming up is relationship. First came very popular word, if I go back in 80s, CRM, Customer Relationship Management. So if you look at the whole chain, on the customer side, we want to build up a wonderful relationship. Now same thing has come up on this side. Guys also wants to have a good relationship on the demand side, supply side. So supply side, you might have made a long-term arrangements. The guy has given you 15% discount because you're doing the volume leverage. You're making a long-term arrangements. Great. But to get the continuous benefit of it, you need supplier relationship management. That will carry you much further. So SRM is bridging the gap around. That's why the relationship management you see as in the part of the role around. The next thing comes up is the legal role in finalizing the contract. So when you're doing the contract, you know very well it's a very complex contract, high value contract, and there could be potential risk in this. So if there are potential risks, are we addressing those risks upfront? So that means my contract should cover those potential risks well in advance. And the last one, again, I'm putting up is the risk management. How are we mitigating our risk? Some people think we can eliminate it. There's a cost. So whether should we think of zero risk? There's going to be a lot of risk costs around. So can we mitigate the risk around? Because when you're doing a contract, there's a potential of business risk around. You're outsourcing it. You're going for globalizations. There could be potential risk. The country gets an earthquake. The country gets some tsunami or something. That could affect your delivery. That could affect your chain and disrupt the whole supply chain. So in short, it shows that the new role of the procurement people. The procurement professionals are donning multiple hats and role, and they're becoming more strategic. Let me give again small overview of typical supply chain. So when we talk of supply chain, procurement is a part of it. So procurement is expanding its role. Sometimes we call supply management. In ISM we call supply management. And if you expand still further, it becomes supply chain management. You can see in this role, you have a supplier management. You're doing procurements. You're doing manufacturing, which is nothing but converting the input into output. And the products, you're trying to come with the new products around, inventory management, distribution, logistics, retail, and customers. So this complete chain of activities and all the organizations which are involved in all this activity, you combine them, it becomes the supply chain. And managing the chain is supply chain management. Now, broadly, the trend, the way we are looking around, before I go into the each point by point, in 90s, 80s, 70s, it was all about price. We used to pat ourselves, oh, I have cut down the price by 10%. We might have cut down the price, but that might have affected your qualities. That might affect your downtime. That might affect your more consumption of electricity and fuel. So now the focus is more about cost management. So it became in 95. So I remember when we used to buy in good old days the computers, very beginning, we used to look around how much is the wattage of this. Somebody might be giving you cheaper computers, but if power consumption is more, then obviously I'll look at the total cost of concepts around. So the total cost of ownership. Similarly, if you're buying a vehicle for your personal use or for office use, somebody might be giving you cheaper price, but somebody gives you a little higher price, but the mileage is better, maintenance cost is less, and later on when I want to dispose my vehicle, I get a better price. So technically you will look at the total cost of ownership, not what you're going to pay up front. So that's the way the concept moved from price to cost management. Then in 2000, strategic sourcing. So we basically strategize the whole sourcing part. Guys, what is my spend of the last years? Which are the key items I'm procuring around? Who are the key suppliers around? Which are the new suppliers that have come up? Now I'm looking more on a global basis. Identify the best suppliers through bidding exercise. Then I negotiate the best price. Have an agreement with them for 2 years, 1 year. That's what we call strategic sourcing. But strategic sourcing has some limit. If you're not following it properly, if you don't do a proper contract management, the benefits which you have planned for strategic sourcing will slowly go down. Then come the category management. So when we do the strategic management, sourcing part, we were looking more as an item base. We were looking at a supplier base. Now in a category management, we are looking more as a category base. So we try to club the items which belong to the same family. All electronic items. We know very well they come from the same group of companies. And then we call categorization. And I know very well because I would say I was the one who started working on it very beginning in 86, 87. We came with the United Nations Common Coding System, which later on in consultation with Dun and Bradstreet, we came up with the concept of UNSPSC, United Nations Standard Product Standard Classification, which is used worldwide as a common standard to do the categorization. So the category management now is becoming the very popular word, and which I worked in 86, 88, 89, those years I worked around. And now the next thing which is coming up as a part of the trend is a value management. So moving from price to cost to strategic sourcing to category, and the last is all about values. Some of you might be thinking, what are the values? See, ultimately, supplier comes and asks you something. They're looking for some function. To provide those functions, you are spending money. That's a cost. So the ratio of the two is the my values. So this is how we look at it. Now this is another thing I want to show around before I really go into nuts and bolts of the trend management. So strategic sourcing was the first step of capturing the value. Risk management became how do I secure the values. Contract management means you have planned a wonderful agreement during strategic sourcing. If your contract management is poor, the benefits will be only for a very short time. If you want to capture the benefit over the long term, contract management is the one only which can assure you value. The next step comes is SRM and performance management. I would call performance management as a subset of SRM, supplier relationship management. So if you want to add extra values, in addition to strategic sourcing, you need to jump into SRM. So those of you who are planning to transform your procurements, some might be still struggling at a strategic level. Some might be struggling at a risk level. Some at contract management. Those who have gone over these steps, they should think of SRM implementation. Now here I just want to show you around. I'm sure many of you might have seen this. That's the cover page of our summary report, which we call as a Procurement Trends for 2016. If some of you have not got it, please do ask for the copy. It'll give you every details around. I won't be going each line by line in this one, but it gives you wonderful information. Please ask for it. You can also download it from our website. Now let me go down to the game-changing trends. So the game-changing trend, as I said to you, the change is everywhere. The change is constant. Now what we are looking around is the cost cutting as the top priority. Cost cutting is much more a big priority for the medium scale companies. For the large scale company, cost cutting is there, but their focus is more on the value. Then we heard from the feedback, around 60% of the companies are willing to invest on technology and tools to improve their capability and cost reduction. Some of them are planning to move from tactical to strategic sourcing. This is becoming very popular nowadays. We are doing one day program next month. The purpose of that is to again create an awareness. What is strategic sourcing? What is this tool around? How this can help you? So the next one is the talent gap. I think this is also becoming very visible nowadays. Companies are trying to identify the gaps. What are the gaps in my existing team around? And if I want to transform my company to a next level, what skills are required around? What type of hard skill? What type of soft skill? What skill gaps are there around? How do I train my people around? So that's the way we are working on. Then another thing is coming around is sometimes the good old days are gone when we used to keep information to our chest. We will never share with our suppliers. Now people are trying to become, as supply chain is expanding, one side to customer, one side to supplier, people are trying to share the information. So the top 10 procurement trends of 2016. So let me go point by point. The very first one is from cost focus to value focus. As I said to you in the beginning, in good old days used to be on the price. So from price we mature to the cost. And later on from the cost we've gone to the value focus. So the focus is all about value. What value I'm getting? What is the value for money? That's the focus around. It is not the cost alone. The second is moving from tactical to strategic. I think I have conveyed this many times in my previous seminars and sessions. If I look back 30, 40 years back, if I used to visit any company, If suppose there are 50 procurement people, 40 people were doing only transaction. So morning they will come, they know here is the supplier, here is the item, placing order, one order after another orders. That's all they were doing around. That's a purely clerical function, purely operational function. Now people are, when I see around the company which are really matured and transformed, they're doing more of a strategic sourcing. If I look at the same 50 people today, out of the 35, 40 are doing strategic sourcing, only 10 to 15 are doing transactional thing. Another thing is becoming is SRM, Supplier Relationship Management. And I covered this in my previous session also. Relationship management. You have made a wonderful agreement with someone. Supplier knows that you're going to buy from them, but what type of relationship you have? I think this is the key thing which we have to learn from the Japanese manufacturing companies, whether it's a Toyota, whether Honda, they're very good on that. I mean, this was the key thing when they did around, when they moved from the Japan and they moved their base to America, there were General Motors, there were Ford, and on top of it we had Toyotas and Hondas. They were also there. So they were moving there, but their management style was different. When it came to Toyotas and Hondas, they were treating their supplier more like a partners. While that may not be true in the case of American, while the suppliers were same. So you can imagine how the turnaround can change, The next is the technology and tools. So you want to change the technology and the tools to improve the process. People want to cut down the real mundane work. The stigma which we all have that, oh, we are procurement people, are only process people. So the processes can also go by handled by technology. So we can spend more of energy to strategic function, more of energy on supplier relationship management, shorten and more complex product life cycles. Now from data management to data analysis. So that's where the focus is coming around. So data management is, that means we are getting a lot of data now, and then data we all have. When we do procurement, there's a lot of data around. And then we're converting the data part into data analysis. We're trying to analyze the data. So that's important. It's not just having the data. We've got multiple of data, but we're trying to analyze the data. Globalization is to improve quality and reduce cost. So globalization is becoming very popular. Improved procurement and sourcing skills. Procurement strategy alignments with corporates. And the last is risk management. So let me also say around that these trends are not just a silent companion. These top trends will no longer be a silent companion in 2016. You have to really think of actual rethinking. How do I change it? How do I improve it? So that's what it needs around. Sharing and visibility. Now information holding to informations, I think very important around. We have to improve this, we have to change it, we have to share it much bigger way. Talent managements, I would say it is the top requirements around. You might be thinking of technology, you might be thinking of strategies, you might be thinking of processes. At the end of the day, you want to transform your supply chain. Critical competencies in hiring top supply chain talents, global orientations, leadership and business skills, and technical savvy. Now, as I said to you, instead of being reactive, you're trying to become proactive. And then also we are changing from knowledge to training to knowledge-based learning. See, in the past, I remember we used to go for the training programs. We learn something. That was only whatever has been taught, we just try to see. But now we are trying to become more of learning, trying to become more analytical. So we're moving away from the functional part to disrupting supply chain performance part. So that's what we're looking around. If you look at the bigger pictures, worldwide, the whole economy was agriculture based. So in the half of the 20th century, we became service based. So first, I would say from agriculture, we became, so agriculture, and then we have moved to manufacturing, and from manufacturing, moved to service. So that's the way trend has been around. So here it shows you what is knowledge. You have the informations, you understand the details, it gets your knowledge, and then when you go a step further, it becomes the wisdom part. Next is also around is that we should know what is excellence part. See, when we talk of excellence, when I say I have an excellence, it looks into two issues around. What type of practices I'm using around? Are my practices better than the others around? Second, my procurement activities, are they aligned with my corporate objectives or not? So the two things are very important around. It has to be aligned with the corporate objectives. My practices has to be better than the others. They have to be in par with the best practices around. So this is where when we talk of procurement excellence. Here it gives you a small idea around. So when we talk of excellence from traditional to center of excellence, we move from strategies, tactical to proactive. Methodology has become from process to revenue focus. In organization, one size fits all. And in a traditional, again, drive out the cost. Here we're talking of creating values. So you can imagine the center of excellence, the focus is about proactive, revenue focused, and the last is create values. That's where the focus is moving around. So those of you still are in the traditional part, they have to really look around how to become excellence, center of excellence by involving these things around. Now the technology, as you saw in the main trends around, technology is a major game changer. So I'll try to put up in the next few slides the concept, what changes are happening in the technologies. So in the technology space, what new things are coming around and how this can help us to become much more effective. First thing is the digital age. We always have been looking at the rear view mirror. That means we look at the last year's data. How did we do last year's? That's fine. It's good to know the last year's data. It's just like in driving, you're looking at the rear view mirror, plus you're also looking on the front. So same thing we need around. We have the past data. We also need to know what are the new trends going to come up around. Combine the two. That way it'll give you a better approach around. We need to have procurement scorecards. We need to find the KPIs, the key performance indicators, and getting analyticals. We need more self-service portals. So self-service portal mean I can see more like an Amazon.com type model. I put down the item, I find the supplier sources, I get the price and place an order. So we need a self-service portals for everything around. Now, I think I already have touched on this part that we want a touchless Amazon type procurement experience. Many of the procurement people are moving into this. Now here let me explain somewhat about the procurement part. Now if you look at this slide, there's a sourcing, there's a buying. So sourcing is the very first part, identifying this is strategic sourcing part. So if you look at the cycle, analyze the spend, manage the demand, define sourcing strategies, you qualify the suppliers, you negotiate the contract and manage the contract. That's the sourcing part. You may call it the strategic sourcing. So based on strategic sourcing, you identify the sourcing. Now the next one is the buying part. That is the one I call as a very operational part. You may call tactical, operational. So that is starting from identifying the need, which is nothing but request for quotation. You create the requisitions. Requisition is approved. You create the purchase order, shipping, receive, payment. That's what we call P2P. So P2P is nothing but the buying part. Sourcing is purely strategic part. So if you combine the two, it starts from strategic to payment, S to P. So that's how it comes around. So technology canvas, the same thing has been explained little much more way. The only thing which you see in the linkages is the contract management. So the contract management is linking the strategic part and the P2P part and trying to give you much more information. Now let's look at the technology scenarios. What is happening around? The technology scenario, when we look around, obviously the focus is self-service, mobile device. I know we are moving more toward the mobile part. If you look back 10 years back, 15 years back, or 5 years back, we had big computers around. From there, we have moved to the laptops. Now we are moving into the smaller mobile systems around where we can do every actions around. So many apps are available around. So mobile procurement is becoming very, very important around tablets, smartphones, hybrid PCs. You might have seen hybrid PCs already. Dell has come up around, HP has come up around. So you can remove the top piece, it is like the tablets. So you're moving in a car, you can do your work. When you come to the office, you fix that on the keyboard, it becomes a hybrid PCs around. So that's a concept which is coming around. Cloud technologies. Now the cloud technology is taking over the very previous technologies around. I'll explain a little more in subsequent slides. Data accuracies. So when we do the strategic sourcing, which is all about the spend management, so the data is very important to us. So the data accuracy is very critical. The quality of the data, if it's garbage in, garbage out. Another thing which is becoming very popular is social media. I know many of the procurement people avoid this, but to me, if I look around to identify new sources, I think it's a wonderful tool, we should use it. Intelligent reporting. Then we're talking about artificial intelligence, which is also coming up, whether it's robotics or other things around. Even to analyze your data, there are artificial intelligence available. So mobile procurement is the one, as I said to you in the beginning, there are mobile apps available. Tablets are becoming very popular. So this is where the world is moving now. Migrating to the clouds. So let me first explain what exactly is the cloud. Let me go to the next slides. You can see in this. So when we talk about clouds, it's all internet-based storage. You have applications, you have servers, you have storage. They're all in the internet. In the good old days, we used to have our own servers. Each company is having own servers. When the workload goes up, we add more servers. When the workload goes down, what do we do with those servers? So now people are coming up with the cloud concept. So the companies are saying, like Amazon.com, Microsoft, they're all coming up with those. They have tons of servers. They're catering to various clients. Each client needs are going up and down in a very cyclic way. So that way they're able to optimize the use of servers. And they're all along with that, they're giving applications also. Today I'm using ERP, whether I'm using PeopleSoft, whether I'm using Oracle, whether I'm using SAP, or I'm using e-procurement. I can get those softwares, those applications, like a lease. So I could use it and pay it depending on my uses. While in the past we used to own it, maintain it, which was not very cost effective. And then the problem came when after 6 or 7 years, technology changes, they're not much relevant to you. So cloud computing is becoming very seamless, B2B integration between buyer and the supply chain partners. And B2B communication with this original form of EDI message least flexible. Since I worked on the EDI good old days, because United Nations was developing this UN EDIFACT in Geneva. So those times we used to develop the standard messages. How do I share my information with a company which is based in another country and who doesn't know English? How do I transfer my PO into their language around? We used to develop EDIFACT standards around. But now with this B2B, with cloud computing, the life is becoming much easier. Here it gives you a rough idea about cloud computing. You can see the 4 columns. The very first column is you own the applications, you own the data, so nobody can see your data, very secretive. Then you have operating system, virtualization, networking, everything you manage. Infrastructures, again you manage it and managed by the vendors. So you can see some part is you are managing it and some part is managed by the infrastructure. And the last column is the one which I would call as a SaaS, software as a service. This is the most popular nowadays coming around. You don't own anything. Applications are managed by the vendors. The data is managed by the vendors. Operating systems are by them. Networking, everything they manage. You only pay for the users. You could compare this concept with like the very first column is like owning a car. You own a car, you run it, you maintain it, while the last column, which is like a SaaS, you don't take a car. You basically lease it. Whenever you need it, you rent it. That's the concept here. If you don't need, give it back. So the types of cloud computing which is happening around is, one is public clouds, private clouds, which are popular nowadays. And this could be also hybrid, a combination of both. Social media, again, here I would say, most of the procurement people normally avoid it. Sometimes they're very secretive. They say, oh, I should not explain this to everybody. They are also worried about that they may be bombarded by too many inquiries. So my request to you will be, I think, still social media is very powerful, very useful to identify, to share the experience. If you want to know about some particular supplier, the references, I think it's a great tool. We should try to use more and more. Spend analytics, a lot of softwares have come up in this. So that also we need to work on it. So many companies have come up with very good tools on this. So that will help you to analyze your data, category-wise, supplier-wise, item-wise, and then based on that, you can do the future analytics. Data qualities. Again, I said in the beginning, garbage in, garbage out. You really need to improve the quality of the data around. Key drivers to propel technology to the future is obviously the platform is the first. Native mobilities, built-in social collaborations, creative features, and intuitive intelligence we need around. So if you want to move into the technologies part, we need to focus all on these parameters. Summary, I would say on this side is technology has a significant role to play in the future of procurements and supply chain and its advancement. It should not be seen as a cost cutter, but as a strategic function that can have a real impact on the bottom line. So technology is certainly going to play a crucial role. Key challenges which we have for all this, that's a wonderful idea, we got the trends, we talk about technologies. The biggest problem we see around in many companies is the mindset and the skill set. Both are the big challenges to us. Some skill sets are very old-fashioned, or even the people who come fresh from the colleges, they have not been exposed to the best skills around, how to do the value analysis, how to negotiate, how to build the relationship, how to review the specs, how to do the bidding, how to develop the draft the contract. So those skill sets we need to really improve upon. And the team mindset is also there around. Or some people say, oh, we tried this 10 years back, it didn't work. But the times are changing. Something which did not work 10 years back does not mean it will not work today. So we need to focus a lot on these challenges as well. Now the action plan I would say around is we need to develop a cross-functional approach. We need to move into process-oriented structures, not the functional structures. I know it will look crazy when I say this. Today still we are very functional. Procurement, logistics, finance. But at the end of the day, so far the customer is concerned, they don't look at you as a separate. They look at you as a one company. They look you as the one function. So we really need, and that function approach means it's a cross-functional approach. So we need to change our structures. The next is on the value management. Focus a lot on the value part. What attributes we can provide to our stakeholders, what attributes we can provide to the customers at the same cost. If I'm able to give extra attributes, extra functions, certainly I'm adding values to them. And lastly is the performance part also. You might be showing a performance in the beginning. Am I able to keep on a consistent basis? Am I able to sustain it? That's what we need to do. Summary is, again, if you want really this function to become visible, very powerful, very important around, we need to create the awareness that the procurement and supply chain is the key functions. Since you guys are controlling 70% of the budget of the company, I think we need to create an awareness. Let management know that you are the crucial functions. Build responsibility for leadership and legacy. So we need to build up the community of practice to share, learn from each other. And the next one is the most effective supply chain design and created. One size doesn't fit all. Each company to company's needs are different, requirements are different. Talent development is essential. Increase the attraction quotient. This is also very important around many people don't want to move into procurement and supply chain because they feel, oh, this is a very basic routine function, doesn't have a strategic input. So we need to improve the attraction quotient so that we can get the best smart people coming into these professions around, who can see the career in this. If they're able to see the career going up to CEOs, you will get more and more smart people coming into supply chain. So I would say it's time for procurement to become very strategic and drive higher performance. And even I would say, if I look around with my experience, supply chain is today at the same level what was IT 10 to 15 years back. So this has a great potential. And with the increase in Make in India, and I would say this is going to become very, very important and visible function. Well, friend, with this, I want to thank you all, but the journey will go on. So before I come to the Q&A, we would like to launch, we have two questions around, and that's